Travis, we are live right now with an impromptu broadcast on NYSTV. This is random, which for those of you who are subscribed and hit the notification bell, this is your treat right here. So if you haven't done that yet, make sure you do, because you never know when a random midweek interview or beginning of the week interview might pop up. I wanted to do this broadcast tonight because when Travis was on last time on Now You See TV, I was not able to be there, but I had questions that I really wanted to ask him, and I'll explain to you why before we get started. But Travis, he lost his father not too long ago, and I lost my father not that long ago. His dad grew up and had an extraordinary life. It was different than a normal person's life as a Bigfoot hunter. My dad was a minister and principal of a school and had his own mission in his way. And so when you lose somebody like that in your family, it's a really tough thing to go on. But I was very curious about Travis. First, let me introduce you, and then I'll get to the questions. But how's it going, man? Thank you for coming.
Dude, man, it's awesome. It's my honor to be here, and thank you for letting me on.
I appreciate you coming on at just short notice too, because we just talked about it today. So for those of you that don't know, Travis Carpenter is Scott Carpenter's son, the legendary Bigfoot hunter. There's still videos that go around about him, and there's a lot of conspiracy surrounding what happened to him and also other things that were going on in the communities. And so we're going to get to a lot of that. What I have first to ask you, Travis, and this is something I've been wanting to ask you, but what was it like growing up as having a dad who's a Bigfoot hunter? I mean, that's so different. I mean, you were literally born into this.
Yeah, that's the wild part of it is I didn't really want any of this or anything like that. Yeah, growing up, dad was always, we were a questioning family. Dad was in the military, in the Air Force. He had top secret level clearance with communications. So from a very young age, we were taught to not necessarily trust the narrative pushed by the media. Like, we always knew something was up, and and growing up, that was fun. And dad really didn't get into Bigfoot stuff until I graduated high school. He had an encounter when he was real young and couldn't put the pieces together with it. He actually had nightmares about it. He had two small Bigfoot ran up, pressed their nose against like a glass door, and he saw their faces, saw everything, and then did that, kind of looked for a little bit. My grandmother had made some noise outside, and they ran off, and that haunted him for years, And then in 2008, he was fishing off of a point called Baker's Creek. It's in Louisville, Tennessee, and actually in Greenback, Tennessee, right where I'm building my house and where I buried him. Um, he was fishing off a point there and made a whoop, like just a regular old whoop, and had a reaction. And then he's like, I got to go check that out. So growing up and like having that, it was like, Dad, what do you really think these things exist? What's going on? And then I went out with him, and then saw footprints, saw hair, saw all this stuff, and it's like, Dad's not making this up. This is something. And then it just really, really took off from there.
Yeah,
So
before you like realized it, I mean, did you said he was obsessed over it, kind of, or maybe not obsessed isn't the right
it,
word, but did he talk about it a lot? And what did your guys'
yes.
friends think and all the people you hung out with? I mean,
So during that time I worked and with a bunch of people, and it was one of those things. Was like, hey, dad's going out looking for Bigfoot, and they're like, okay, whatever, no big deal. And then, like, at Christmas and stuff like that, it's like, hey, you know we're finding a few things. And then we kind of have this conversation of, is, like, you're serious about this? And he's like, yeah, this is really what's going on. And then dad starts to write books and have these experiences, and then the family starts to show up and to the conferences and listen. And then it's like, And then we start kind of like really, the whole family kind of starts getting into it. But there was an obsession with it. There was an obsession with it. It was, there's a, no one grows up perfect. No one has the perfect marriage or life or whatnot. There's a lot of things going on in dad's life at that time. So it did become an obsession, and he warned about that in his books of how it can become an obsession.
Did you ever worry about him? I mean, like, looking at your dad and being like, Dad, you're literally obsessed with this and this has become your life. Did you worry about him, or was it something that you were just like, if you had this experience, like, I'm ready to help you seek it out?
It was more or less the second. It was, you had this experience. I want to help seek you out. I want this to be, I want to spend time with you. So this is a way to spend time with them and do that. Now, my
Did you,
wife on the other, oh, go ahead,
no,
bud.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Now, my wife on the other hand, she had a lot of discernment. I think the Lord gives us women for a lot of discernment in certain things. And her gut was like, Travis, I don't know. I don't know about this. Um, my my gut's telling me that if these things are hidden, maybe there's a reason why they're hidden. She didn't necessarily know exactly what was up, but she got bad vibes is the best way I know how to put it. She didn't like me going out and helping dad hunt for him.
Mm.
And later on in life, there came to be a reason why why that came to be very, very true.
Yeah, so let's get to that. So obviously your dad was probably thought they were either malevolent or benevolent. You can tell us whichever one. He was looking for them. He probably thought like, and this is what I had always believed, that they were an ape-like creature, probably some North American ape or hybrid of sorts that just has gone unmapped because of its superb ability to be in areas where nobody's at. And that's what I used to believe. What happened that changed his mind? I know a lot of people have heard this story, but when you're sitting there experiencing it from your point of view, what did you see? Not what he said, but what did you see happening?
What I saw happening with dad is dad really started getting just these weird things. He would call and text and like, hey, there's something going on. There's this. Look at, they're following me home. Um they've left these things for me. And then it was just like they started, you know, dad's hmm, dad's personal life was very rough. Not gonna get into too much, but there was some times in dad's life that dad's life fell completely apart, and I was there to pick up the pieces. And What I saw was the enemy take full advantage of his life, his his strength, his will being down. And what they, that's what I saw, is just a man just be completely put upon by the enemy, is
So
what I saw in the last couple of years of his life.
when he would tell you, say, look, this is going on, are you talking about like paranormal things he's telling you
Yeah.
about?
So he would talk about these paranormal things of, so he would talk about the Bigfoot following him home. He would talk about, and that's actually what does happen. Is they will follow you home. They absolutely will. He talked about, they would do that, and then they would cause ruckus in the neighborhood. They would run across, the top of his house. They would slap the side of his house. Things of that nature. There was actual, he talked about them actually having some, you know, poltergeistish things happen at the house. He would be asleep, and he would have that feeling of being put upon and pressed, and he'd wake up, look in the corner, and see, um, that dark black figure. See that in the corner. he woke up this one time and saw wet footprints leading from an area out to the back door. Small wet footprints, things of that nature, voices, all that. And that all didn't go away until he prayed them away. And he went to the four corners of his house and he took dominion over that, and he prayed the blood of Jesus over that. And at that point, the paranormal stuff stopped immediately. Now, he said that there was kind of a bubble around it. So there was still a few things, but when it came to the home visitations, all the bad paranormal stuff at his house, gone. After that, after he played the blood of Jesus in the four corners of his house.
Is
And
that
I've
what
done.
is that what made him believe that this was spiritual and not physical? Or
Yes.
I mean, obviously them beating on the house, if you saw that, you could think, okay, that's physical, you know. But the poltergeist stuff, did he feel like that was actually connected to the Bigfoot?
Yes, there was a few different things. This is the time when the Dr. Ketchum, the Sasquatch Genome Project was really the results were coming out that it was a human hybrid, which means you have a mitochondrial DNA human, and the nuclear DNA, the inside the nucleus was unknown, run through GenBank. So you have physical evidence that it is a being that should not exist. Dad and myself and all that, we are biblical people. So the Nephilim theory was in his mind, but it wasn't totally sold on it until the paranormal stuff, him praying them away. That happened. The second thing is Dad was on this encounter. Dad was walking through and he's like, all right, I'm going to test this theory. Dad started talking to him and he started saying terrible, terrible things about him. I mean, things that you would punch him in the face if he said to you. He was enticing them, and he got a response, and he said he got zapped insanely hard. He was urinating blood for a couple days is what it. And he actually had a friend with him that caught it on recording, caught the pop, all that stuff. And for those that don't understand what zapping is, it's basically dad describes it as basically being like almost like shocked with a taser, like it is what he described it as. But it hurt him so bad that he fell to his knees. It is what happened. And at that point, he knew that they were intelligent. They could understand what he was saying. They were also all the stuff that mind speaking. They were DNA. The DNA evidence pointed to them being Nephilim. And then the paranormal point where they respected the name of Jesus. They respected that, because you can't rebuke a bear. You know, you can't rebuke a mountain lion. You can't rebuke anything like that. If if a bear's coming at me, John, and I try to rebuke it, I'm going to get eaten. But if I rebuke a spiritual thing and it follows that, then it's spiritual in nature. And that's what made him, that really just clicked in his mind. And then that's when he found you guys, the Now UCTV, the LA Marzulis, and then really started researching that Nephilim and putting all those pieces together.
I can imagine that when he found this out, it probably wasn't received well by most of the Bigfoot community. Am I right?
That's exactly right. At that point in the community, he was a part of the woo-woo movement, where it was, oh, you believe Bigfoot is this real paranormal thing and spiritual and has all this stuff. The scientific community, it's funny, by the way, the scientific community likes Bigfoot in their little bipedal ape box, because it fits either their evolutionary box. It fits their it fits their money making box. Whatever that may be, it fits that box, or they want it to fit that box. And Dad basically took those boxes and just shattered them. And then at that point, it's like, wait, we can't deal with Bigfoot being, you know, maybe interdimensional in nature, being biblical in nature, being spiritual in nature, being a Nephilim, maybe, you know, maybe being a avatar for the fallen spirits of the Nephilim. Well, like, we can't deal with that. That's not in their worldview, in their mindset. So it definitely wasn't taken very well in the community. And Dr. Ketchum and Dad were labeled as kind of crackpots for some folks.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine that that would beat into a lot of people's, job. Like they take people out on these hunts and they do stuff like that. I've noticed something, and maybe I'm wrong here, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like a lot of people who are focused in on actually looking for Bigfoot or Dogman or one of these things, and they go out to them, they leave them stuff, that there's health concerns either with that person or with somebody in their family. And I'm only saying this because almost every person that I know that is actively involved in this, not everyone, but almost everyone, has either somebody terminally ill in their family or they're going through illnesses and treatments themselves.
And you and I both know who we're talking about. He's a good friend of mine. Is doing that exact thing. Is having that. I think what happens, and this is my warning to all the folks, is do not seek them out. And that's what Dad's warning was too. Is there's nothing you can gain anymore by seeking them out. Dad has done all the research for you. Dad's done the stuff, and they have scientifically proven that these things exist. Treating them like an unknown species or an unknown clan or that you want to get to know, there's no benefit in it. There's only harm. And when you earnestly seek them out, you give them permission to earnestly seek you out. It's like an opening. It's like a Ouija board or something like that. It's like when you do that, whatever the unwritten rules of the universe of the spirituality is, you give them that permission. I'm begging you, I'm begging folks, and Dad is too, don't do that. And the folks that, and Jon, I'm being honest with you, the folks that we're discussing, and my friend that is going through major things, my father told him not to seek them out, told him not to, and tells many people not to do that. I hope and pray that, I would be ignorant. I would be like Job's ignorant friends saying there's certain reasons to things. But all I'm saying is don't seek them out. Does that make sense, Jon?
It makes sense. And something that I thought about, and I've actually been warned to this by somebody, and I'm not going to give their name because I don't want to cause them any unneeded, anger towards them. I'm just going to tell you what he told me and take it for what it is. But he said that some of these people, not all of them, but some of them are literal priests for these fallen entities, like actual priests for Bigfoot, and they go out. Not, I know there's people that do it and they do it because they want to see Bigfoot or whatever, but he said that they ritualistically, they'll go out, they'll leave stuff for the Bigfoot, they'll cause their followers to worship Bigfoot. This is, going to be their main symbol, their logo. And he was telling me to be careful because within the movement of the Bigfoot movement, you also have priests of these entities, and they're willing to do almost anything to give them glory and also sacrifice even.
I absolutely believe that. I've run across a lot of these people in the comments sections and starting to. They call the Bigfoot the Sabe, or they'll have this name for them, and they'll almost think of them as our spirit brothers or tribes or whatnot, and they will. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of Bigfoot research, when you boil it right down to it, what they start off doing is actually starting to worship it. I'm putting out Dad's old stuff like the Bigfoot Field Journal just to show you guys kind of where he started and what his mindset is. And he starts off with a gifting station. You're gifting these things. Oh, here's this gift for my idol for, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
For all this stuff.
Like a
So I
food
think a lot,
like a food
bingo.
sacrifice, or like a grain sacrifice, or
Yes.
blood sacrifice, even sometimes.
Exactly, exactly. And it's not, I think there's some like you said, some well-meaning people, like Dad was well-meaning, but when you start really looking at it, it's like, wait a second here. This isn't okay. What I'm doing here is not cool. Oh, I'm just leaving a gift for my friend. It's like, well, is it your friend? Is it your friend? And like you said, these people that worship it, yes, there are so many people that genuinely that they get to this point where they're looking for so much unknown knowledge. They're looking for so much light, let's say, or just whatever. And and, and when they find something, like they have an encounter with Bigfoot or whatnot, they think they found something that no one else has found, and they think they're special. They want to be the chosen ones, and they'll do anything to do that. So I absolutely believe that, and absolutely, and I also think that a lot of these Native American spots, like where my dad's research area is, I think there was a lot uh, of of Sasquatch worship there before white people got there. Just being honest with you, because the big part of the big main place that they stay is very close to an old Cherokee Nation Tanasi. So I think there's a little bit of that involved as well.
Your dad had made a video that I found very interesting. He was talking about a group of people, I believe in Canada, who were hunting and killing these creatures, possibly, at least he's the story he's been told. And I want to know more about that situation, because from what I understand, there is a very deep rabbit hole when it comes to this whole subject.
So, yes. So, Bobby Short is a lady that allegedly had seen the entire Patterson Gimlin film. Bobby Short and Dad had emailed each other and talked to each other on the phone. Bobby Short, when she told Dad in a phone conversation that these hunters in Canada, there's a specialized group of hunters, and their jobs was to get rid of problem Sasquatch. Apparently, they had a specialized dog, animals, all that. And what they would do is, if let's say you had a logging situation, or you had things and there were Bigfoot in the area, that this specialized group would take care of it. Um now the other conversation of how they got the Patterson Gimlin film was, they had captured a juvenile Bigfoot, they had staked it out, and when the other Bigfoot had come to save the juvenile, they absolutely unloaded and shot and all that stuff. And that's what Bobby Short, in a phone conversation, told my father. So it's kind of like he said, she said. Now, Bobby Short was respected, and she was, again, respected and by the Bigfoot community as such. And in her later years, it really upset her. It really, before she passed, that's what she had told Dad. That that has been talked about by multiple people that have seen the entire film, supposedly. Now, do I think that we will ever see that entire film? No. But I do believe the Patterson Gimlin film is real. I believe that it is a female Bigfoot. Um, and I believe it is still the best known or seen Sasquatch Bigfoot film that you're ever going to see.
I totally agree with that. I was just getting ready to say that, like, when you watch that film, thinking what you're saying in my mind while as I watch that film, it doesn't look like what a elusive creature would normally do, unless something bad was happening to where it was having to be in that situation. It did. When you think about it, you think about the walk. It's almost like looking back, like knowing that maybe it's walking into danger, but it doesn't care anyway. It's crazy when you kind of put those thoughts together that it does seem very similar. And so I guess my next question is, your dad had this stuff going on. He was obviously kind of a whistleblower in that for this lady, helping do that. And he also had a lot of other stuff going on. And I don't even mean to break out old wounds or anything along those lines, but do you believe that his death was in any way tied to Bigfoot or people trying to shut him up about Bigfoot?
It's a great question. It took me about 6 to 8 months to come to that realization. That night, it was definitely a conversation between me and my wife. Um, so just to let you guys know what happened, I get a phone call from dad's girlfriend at the time. Um, Dad's unresponsive, going to the hospital. I'm thinking, hey, dad's had a stroke, no big deal. These things happen. Dad's a healthy guy. I get to the hospital, walk in, and the doctor looks at me and says, "Your dad has had a unsurvivable brain aneurysm in the back of his skull, where where all your main processes are." So at that point, I'm the next of kin. I've got to make all the decisions, and I've made a promise to my father that I would never let him be a vegetable, and that's what he was at that point. I don't believe his spirit was there. I think it was already gone. Um, Called the family, did all that, but um, I called L.A. Marzulli, called Tony Merkel, called a lot of the people I knew. Had spoke with them. They prayed over me, and I do believe that over time, yes, I do believe something had happened, and I do believe the Lord allowed it to happen. Now, do I know why? Maybe it was to push me into this, to say I can no longer sit on the sidelines anymore. That because I've always known I've been called by God to do something. Um, whether it to be preach, whether it to be um, do something. And maybe that was a way, maybe this is a way for God to be like, you're not sitting on the bench anymore, man. Like, it's your time. Because I did not want this, Jon. I didn't want this. And I looked at folks and it was like, you, you know, um, my friends were like, you can't not do this. You cannot do this. Because I physically felt the prayers of 70,000 people, Jon, physically. I and they were praying for me, and it's one of those things I had to do. I just had to do. So, L.A. Marzulli came out 3 or 4 months ago and said that he believes that the Bigfoot had got to him, and I I I concur is the best way I know how to put it.
So taking on this task for you isn't, obviously it's not just because you're trying to follow in your dad's footsteps, but it's almost personal to you because you sense that you've seen it kind of take your dad's life into almost a spiral at some points. You attribute this to that, the spiral kind of things that happen. And yet here you are getting ready to stand in the gap, but you can maybe learn from his mistakes. What are you planning on? What is your goal, I guess, in this whole thing? When you're speaking, you're posting your dad's videos and you're out here trying to talk to people about this subject, what is your main point of education on this that you just really need people to understand about the whole Bigfoot thing?
I need people to understand that there is a spiritual world out there that we fight against. We don't fight against flesh and blood, but of things and principalities that we don't see. That the world that they see is not all that it is. That there is a supernatural world to us. And the Bible lays everything out. As crazy as this sounds, I want to be able to take folks from this worldview that don't believe everything they're told and say, hey, I've got something for you. the Bible describes this. Look at what the Bible says about this, and lead them in that way. That it's like, hey, this DNA evidence points to this, to the Nephilim, and them being, and by the way, you know what talks about Nephilim? The Bible, and then bringing them through this biblical narrative of it. That's my goal. And if I don't talk about God, if I don't talk about Christ, then I got nothing. So my goal would be, in a really strange, weird way, is to make this a ministry and to talk about Christ with it.
I noticed that when doing SpiracyCon, which you're going to be speaking at SpiracyCon, I noticed that in this Bigfoot community, as well as other communities in the conspiracy realm, it's very much staged almost identically to the music industry and to other industries that I've seen and kind of been a part of, on and off throughout the years. I've noticed there's gatekeepers, there's people that only want certain information out. I've noticed that they all talk amongst themselves too to make sure that their agenda gets pushed, and also that they don't want any other narrative to be mixed in with the pot because it asks too many questions are asked. Did your dad notice this, and have you noticed this as well?
Absolutely. Dad noticed it quite a bit. A lot of the stuff that Dad talked about was kept very, very hush hush. You didn't hear about Dogman until Dad kind of really brought it to the forefront with one of his videos, "The Dogman Exist." They had actually gotten Dogman DNA, Dogman hair samples in the Sasquatch genome study, or before that, it was asked to not discuss it, to not talk about it during that time. There is, a lot of folks will talk about them following them home, but it doesn't sit well on a Saturday night when we're just looking for Bigfoot, no big deal. Oh, they followed me home and we're having visitations and we're having these issues. That just doesn't sit very well with the Bigfoot's just the keeper of the forest folks, or hey, I need to sell some plushy toys. It doesn't sit well with that, especially when it comes to the scientific community. When the DNA came out, it didn't fit. Again, it didn't fit their boxes. So the scientific gatekeeping, in Dad's book, The Truth Denied, talks about just it at nauseum. It talks about folks that were once a part of the study. Once they found and it didn't fit their narrative, they totally went against it. They totally wanted no part of it and wanted to destroy it at any cost. So there is absolutely tons of gatekeeping, and the folks that do gatekeep will stop at nothing. Reputational things, all that, just destroy it. But I'm going to be honest with you, John. The gatekeepers have nothing on me. Like the problem is I don't care about them. I don't. Here's what I care about. I care about the truth. If tomorrow I'm seen as a crackpot, who cares? I've got my family. I've got the Lord. My reputation when it comes to the Bigfoot community, I could give a rip. Just being real with you.
Yeah, man. And the thing is, you would think that if they really wanted to know the truth, if some of these people were like, I really want to know the truth, they wouldn't be scared of other narratives existing within their realm. I think for me, I really enjoy hearing many different ideas on things because in my experience, because of the Holy Spirit being inside of us, but the truth always just stands right out. It's like you see a group and all of a sudden the truth's like, boom, it's right there and you can see it because it makes sense. It is not confusing and it starts to make sense, especially after you experience things. I've noticed sometimes I may hear the truth about something, but I won't really understand it until I experience a few things that kind of put me on that path. And I would think that a lot of these people who are experiencing negative things would want to hear what you have to say just in case they get followed home, just in case they have poltergeist activity. just in case little Jenny in the other room has their head spinning and spitting out green vomit, they might want to know about what you're talking about. But it is strange the way that truth is almost shackled until they, you know, and obviously, like you said, they'll stop at nothing to do that.
I think too, there's a big paradigm shift. I want to tell a story. Have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Les Stroud before, John?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
Les Stroud went to Dad's area, and Dad was on his show, Survivor Man Finding Bigfoot. During that, during the shooting, Les Stroud, he admitted this. So during the shooting, he goes out to this area and he spends the night. Now, Les Stroud spends the night everywhere. Being in the woods is no big deal for him. He was mind spoken to. Now, do you know have you ever heard of mind speak before, John?
Explain it, because I have heard it, but I'm not 100% sure what it is. When it comes to Bigfoot stuff, I am a rookie at best. In fact, real quick, before you talk about mind speak, I was on the verge, actually was in contact with Guinness World Record to have the largest gathering of people together at the same time calling for Bigfoot. This was going to be a world record, Guinness World Record at SpiracyCon, right? And I just, you know, I start really thinking about it, and I stumble across your dad's video that you posted, and I thought, do I really want to be responsible if this thing is a spiritual entity, a demon or something? Do I want to really be the biggest conjurer of this demon to this small town in Cave City? And so I decided to cancel that. But please tell me what mind speak is.
Yeah, I appreciate that, by the way. Thank you for canceling it. But mind speak is this phenomenon where you hear voices, when you hear them talking in your head. It's not your voice, it's a voice inside your head. It's not around, but it's inside. And it's almost to the sense of the word I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but basically they can speak to you inside your head. And they call it mind speak. But it's, you know, kind of like, you know, how you ever seen X-Men, you know, how Professor X would talk to folks.
Right.
And so very, very similar to that. So Les Stroud, who is scientific dude all the way, that this thing is Gigantopithecus. That's got to be it. This is a big hairy ape. Is spending the night where I've buried Dad, where he's had all this stuff beforehand, you know, and again, this guy's been the corner. This is Survivor Man. This is Gurr. Gets mind spoke to, and it shakes him. And what they said to him was, "Hey, we're right over the hill here. If you want to come see us." And in his mind, he literally says back, "No, I'm not ready." And it's that paradigm shift. Now, he admitted that 3 years later on a podcast, and then on Thanksgiving this year, he did a Survivor Man Bigfoot director's cut where the directors watched it, and he did a rest in peace to Dad, and then he fully admitted to being mind spoke to there. You guys can go look that up on Survivor Man, on his channel, Survivor Man, and he talks about this. And what it is that's, even though that's not like gatekeeping, you can't say that on the Discovery Channel. Hey, by the way, I was mind spoke to, and I had this really paranormal thing happen. So Bigfoot, you know, I think this actually happened, rather than it just being a bear licking the trail camera. And that's what it was talked to. Was Discovery can't deal with, hey, this being paranormal. You might see Bigfoot, you might not. It might just be, you know, a bear licking the camera. That's the gatekeeping that we're talking about.
What is wrong with the idea of it being spiritual as well? I don't understand why that's a problem, because they're not afraid to admit that there's UAPs and there's weird stuff going on at Skinwalker Ranch, and, you know, people are seeing poltergeists in their house. They're, you know, the community's all about that. They're like, you know, looking for the next ghost in each house they go to. But when it comes to the idea that Bigfoot could be that, other than they're losing their fun times of going out and showing people Bigfoot and maybe making money off of it, like you said, what else is there that could cause such a reaction like this?
I think it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the evolutionary narrative. And I believe that is a really big deal that we all have to understand. The evolution has run its course. Like we all understand that it's not it scientifically it's unraveling. Everyone knows this. But if Bigfoot comes out to be a spiritual in nature, and you're seeing that and it's physically seen, and Bigfoot is one of the things that every culture has seen. It's almost, you can't ignore the fact that this thing exists. Every culture has it. um that really pushes that biblical narrative, and we can't push a biblical narrative. We can't agree or accept the fact that it is or could be what the Bible describes. I really think that, in my opinion, that evolutionary part is a big thing. The second thing is you have this thing that is out in the woods. You have multiple things, especially when it comes to the national parks and things like that. You have a major loss in revenue with that. You have a major loss of revenue with those towns. And then, of course, like you said, the shows and whatnot. But I believe those major things, that it's like, we can understand if, like, we can allow ghosts and UAPs, but if we allow this Bigfoot thing where people don't feel comfortable going out and camping, going out to, the woods to Cades Cove, all that, we can't handle that. That's just too much. So that's again Travis's opinion.
Well, I was told by somebody within the explorer community, and one of the really, I just been networking with people like crazy lately since we're doing this conference, and he told me somebody specifically, which I'm not going to mention their name, that is almost a part of almost every single Bigfoot conference that I've seen. He says he has evidence that he is hiding the truth about Bigfoot on purpose, and it's a part of some kind of government thing. What do you say about that? Do you believe that's true or possibly true?
Absolutely, I believe that's true. I believe that I believe that they they know about the bodies. They have the bodies. They're studying these things. Um, that I believe they absolutely know all about this stuff, and they put dissenters, and there's paid actors in this community, and they're paid actors to cause dissension, cause disinformation. Um, the government, a government that wanted to keep the people dumb, would not be doing its job if it didn't do that. If that makes sense, you got to think of it from their perspective. So, absolutely.
That's got me questioning, what is the longevity of people who hunt Bigfoots? How much, I guess what I'm asking is, what is the turnover rate for this? Do you see the same people all the time, or is it new people constantly popping up? What's the longevity of this for people mentally and physically?
I think it's not very long. I think it's honestly 4, 5, 10 years at best. But I do see a ton of people popping up and doing it, and trying to do it, and I just really caution against it, because I know they're wanting to find answers. But you're playing with fire. You're playing with fire. So that would, again, that's my cautionary tale to them. Because the folks that go out and do it all the time, you're asking for trouble. You really, really are. I think the guys that have looked into it and have lasted the longest, like David Pilates, he's talked to other people, he's done that, but he doesn't go out and seek them anymore, and he kind of takes a step back type of role. And you see that from those guys at Skinwalker Ranch. They don't go out to Skinwalker Ranch every night for 10 years.
Yeah,
They don't, those guys don't want any part of it anymore. You know what I
yeah,
mean? They'll
yeah.
sit and talk about it, but they ain't going out and playing with that fire.
That's for true. I talked to Thomas Winterton last time I saw him, and he's experienced physical trauma because of it. He was on the first season there that received that blast to the head from the some kind of weapon of some sorts, and you're right, they're not there all the time. They're not always trying to seek this thing out. And David, you talked about David Paulides,
Mhm.
and his work to me is very monumental in showing that not only could these things be dangerous, but they might literally be abducting people and doing something to them and putting them out, which leads me further to believe that it could be part of some kind of program. And maybe, just maybe, some of these people who are bringing these people out here might be trying to feed this entity more data. I mean, that's what concerns me the most about, I think, all of this is, are we trying to feed this entity data by bringing people out there? If in fact these people are in contact with this entity and their whole role is to bring people out there, um, what kind of dark repercussions have you seen from people that are, have you seen people go missing before? I guess is what I'm asking. Have people gone missing to the point to where you just don't know where they're at anymore?
I personally haven't. There's a legendary story here in East Tennessee of a little boy that went missing in the Great Smoky Mountains, and they actually sent the Green Berets in to find him, and they couldn't find him. Um, Dad actually interviewed those, and their names escape me, but I mean, that's a legendary thing, a legendary story about it, and we're so I haven't physically talked to these people or anybody that's gone missing, but at the same time, there's just new people every day showing up, going, and going to the park, and like you said, they'll they'll make up a story of, oh, someone just got lost in the trail, someone did this, did that, and there's some big issues. Now, there was a really weird thing that just happened about a year ago, here in East Tennessee, and it made the news. This guy, and it's a really weird story. This guy apparently went up up the trail. He apparently, well, like, was a paramedic, had and some weird things were going on, but um he had IV stuff with him. So he tried to start his own IV, couldn't do it, bled out, and was laying in a creek. And he said he physically felt like he was picked up and moved somewhere, resuscitated, and then was able to crawl and walk back out like 3 or 4 days later. But this is like, and I was like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard, because I'm like, who in the world brings IV stuff to him, or all that? And then, to be like you said, the worshiping thing, could he have been trying to do something else with these entities and it went wrong, and then we're trying to kind of have this cover story of that? Who knows? But it was the weirdest, craziest thing I'd ever heard, and everyone was like, oh, that's kind of weird, but we're glad he's alive, and just, it went on. So that's about the craziest thing I've heard lately from that.
Yeah, it's alarming to think that you could just go to a national forest and just boom, disappear, end up miles
Yes.
from where you were. Your child could disappear underneath your very nose. And I wonder how many of these cases Bigfoot's name was involved. Were they looking for Bigfoot? Was this the reason they were out there? I just wish that we knew that data.
That is same. That data is politely taken and disposed of by TWRA, by the Forest Service, all those things. There's a famous story, that Dad talks about, is very, that happened in our city, of a lady that is very prominent, very smart. That she was running down the greenway, and she sees a dog man that's literally staring at an airplane. We live near an airport, actually, and this airport is by a really big, by a big area, by the Tennessee River, actually. And this lady's running in this park, and and comes around this corner, and this dog, not a Bigfoot, this dog man, which she, she's not, she's obviously not in the paranormal world. She didn't even know these things obviously exist. She's looking at it. It's looking at the airplane. That's what it's hearing. Because you've had an airplane go over. It's almost overwhelming how an airplane taking off can just overwhelm your senses. So she snuck up on it. This thing comes down, looks at her, and then runs off across the field. She calls TWRA, freaking out, and they politely, say, "Ma'am, we don't handle this stuff, blah blah blah." She's like, "You're not going to push me off the phone. I'm not crazy." Calls multiple times, and TWRA actually gives her dad's information to talk to him. So the government knows about Bigfoot, knows about these entities, knows about Dogman, and then also knew that dad existed and his contact information. So think about that.
Yeah, before I ask this next question, for those of you that are listening, this is your first time or you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe, hit the notification, hit the like, and hit the share. We really appreciate it, and it helps with everything we do to get out to more people. It's very important. My next question to you is, do you believe all Bigfoot are bad, or are there good ones? Is it possible that some of these entities are, at best, just neutral?
I think that's exactly right. I think at best neutral. They don't have a sign like I'm stealing from what Dad said. They don't have a sign that says I'm a good one or a bad one. I think that they all have personalities. I think that they all are like us. They have good days and bad days. And like Dad said, it's like if I'm on my bad day, killing someone or offering someone's on the menu. It's maybe way down on the menu, but it's on the menu. Do I think they're all bad? I think their genetic disposition pushes them that way. Now, when I think of Nephilim, you talk about, you look at what David had, the lion men of David, all that. I don't have a good answer for you. And that's one thing that Dad really struggled with too, is are they all bad? Are there some good ones or whatnot? I I don't know. But what I do know is they won't talk to us. They won't come out and have a TV interview. So there's something going on there. When they do talk, the spiritualness, when they do the mind speak, when they're asked who Jesus is, they don't give a straight answer. They don't know who Jesus is. They know who God is, but they don't know who Jesus is. So they deny the existence of Christ. So that really bothers me. That bothered Dad. Also, they won't give a straight answer on who they are. They're the spirit brothers. We're the keepers of the forest. We're this, we're that. It's all manipulation. It's all lies. It's all this and that. So I don't have a good answer for you, but if there's a good one out there, I haven't seen one.
So, I wrote down a question here, and of course I can't read it now.
Been there.
Yeah. So, would you say that most experiences that people have start out at least good, causing them to kind of go into it?
I think so. I think a lot of these experiences, they start out as, okay, I saw one, just running through or whatnot. There's some folks that have experiences where they will genuinely sneak up on one, and then they have those experiences like, oh gosh, and it's surprised and they're surprised. A surgeon, a very well-known surgeon, called Dad to talk to him about this, about his experience. He was running up the trail, and he saw, basically, he came over the top, had this Bigfoot leaning down taking a drink. And we're talking about a surgeon. He's like, I saw the muscle structure, I saw the skin, I saw the flies, the gnats around it. I know what I saw. I'm not crazy. So and it saw it, and saw him and ran off. I think a lot of people just want to know that that have these encounters just want to know that they're not crazy. They their mind almost, they have this cognitive dissonance where their mind just pops, where it's like, does this one thing exist? Like this, I have this worldview, and then I have this other worldview type of thing, and they just want to connect them again.
Yeah.
For the
And
folks that, don't go ahead,
no,
John.
I was just going to say that's really important to know too, because most people that are really adamant about something like this are seeking something. And I think it's important that we show love to these people and even
Yes.
offer them a solution in case things get out of hand for them, because obviously they're not going to believe what you're saying because that's not been their experience yet. But when it becomes their experience, then that's when that seed starts to grow inside their heart. So we definitely should be, at least if nothing else, being a presence within the community to be able to help them. And I think about that with any community. And I'm thankful that you're a part of that community. We are wrapping up here to the end of this broadcast. And if you liked having a random midweek interview or beginning of the week interview, please hit the like button and let me know in the comments in the chat, because if you like it enough, it's possible we'll do it again. But what would you tell people if this is your last minute? Tell people where you're from, and maybe not where you're from, but where your website is. Tell people how they can get in touch with you, and also any last words that you'd like to speak to people that are listening that maybe they're undecided, they don't know for sure.
Yeah. So you can find me at the Sasquatch Awareness channel, or you can just Google Sasquatch Awareness. You can Google Scott Carpenter. You can Google T Carp, TCARP, and you can find me there on YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. If you would like to get a hold of me, you can DM me on Instagram or Facebook, or you can email me at TCARP1616 at yahoo.com, and I'll do my best to answer you. And my last thing is, please don't go seeking these out. You're there, there's no gain in this. There's just no gain. My father did all the hard work for you. I'm putting those out as quickly as possible, and as much as possible, as digestible as possible. And just be very, very cautious. And if you do have something, you're not alone. If you've had an experience, you've had an encounter, you're not crazy, you're not alone, and we're here for you.
Right on, guys. So let's pound the like button on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Hit that like button. Thank you guys so much. And I will see you guys again very, very soon. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that bell. And I'll see you guys later. Thank you. I think that we're done here. So I think we're actually